Go.
This is episode 55 of Fans Talk TNA. My name is Nick, and with us tonight is Garvin. Say howdy, Garvin.
Howdy, Garvin.
We are here to recap and review the November 18th episode of Impact Wrestling. Now, before we get started, if you're digging what we're doing and you want to help out, how about joining the Squared Circle of Trust? You can help us cover the costs of recording, hosting, and distributing our episodes, and all it takes is $1 a month. With that dollar or more, depending on what you choose to donate, you can find the entire archive for this series, as well as others from the Fans Talk family, as well as other fun perks. Just knowing we have feedback and support helps us to keep doing what we're doing every week. You can head on over to fanstalktna.com right now and find out more. This week on Impact, we had a lot of resolutions as far as group play goes. Group knockouts wrapped up with Awesome Kong beating Brooke for 3 points to advance. Eric Young defeated James Storm for 3 points to advance as well. Mahabali Sherd beat Aiden O'Shea for 3 points. He's advancing. Eli Drake is advancing as well, beating Crimson for 3 points. And in the main event, we had Bobby Roode beat Abyss for 3 points to advance as well. One other match that happened, Tigre Uno beat Manic for 3 points, but instead of advancing, we've got a little bit of a triple threat scenario here. So next week, we're going to have a playoff match where 2 guys advance and 1 goes home. So, Garvin, I don't know about you, but I thought we had pretty good matches across the board here.
Yeah.
Notably for me, I think the main event, and I was kind of impressed with the Shira versus O'Shea match.
Yeah, Shira versus Aiden O'Shea was okay. I think my favorite match was probably the X Division match. Rude versus Abyss was pretty good as well.
Yeah, probably the match of the night would have to be the main event. Taking nothing away from the Knockouts match, which opened up the show, I thought there was some pretty good psychology going on there. Kong just focusing all of her offense on that broken... I can't remember if it's broken hand or broken fingers that Brooke had.
Two broken fingers. Yeah.
That's right. But that was pretty much a foregone conclusion. So we got Gail Kim and Awesome Kong going on to the final round. Or the round of 16, rather. The X Division match presents an interesting opportunity. Who do you think is going to be going on between those 3 guys?
Well, for me, Manic was... I mean, he just looked very strong. He was dominant. It really raised like his credibility for me as far as the realistic potential for him to do well in the round of 16. So I definitely want to see him there. Honestly, I'd love to see DJZ as well. You know, we don't necessarily need Tigre Uno to move up just yet. I'd rather see him continue in the X Division, going for the title and continuing to... I'm sorry, is he holding the title?
Yes, he is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so continuing to hold the title and help build up that division. But yeah, I think overall Manic and DJZ are my picks.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We don't need any further advancement from champions. Tigre Uno just doesn't need that right now, and I'm not entirely sure how he's doing health-wise right now. I believe he had a separated shoulder. I don't recall the recovery time for that, but it seems to me that it's a little soon for him to be back in action, especially in something as highly visible as the World Title Series will be in the coming months. So, Manic and DJZ make a whole lot of sense. They're both decorated veterans, I suppose you could say, and I think they both look very credible against the more traditional heavyweights going forward.
Yeah, as far as this match goes this week, I was really surprised that Tigre Uno won, just because of how Manic looked in control for a majority of that match. But yeah, I'm in full agreement with you.
Yeah, it was a very interesting move. I dig that they're trying to mix things up a little bit so it's not all as cut and dried as two guys advance, two guys go home. There's a little bit of extra intrigue in there, I guess. With EY versus Storm, that was a really weird dynamic for me. I I I don't necessarily know if I would prefer them both to heal it up and try to out cheat each other. You know, kind of the way Eli Drake and Jesse Goddard did last week. But it was just really weird seeing Storm play the face to the crowd and do that crowd pandering before each comeback and big move. Going up against a guy like EY, who is essentially TNA's ultimate heel, I think that's a little balanced out. But I don't know. Just seeing him in the Revolution for the past several months, that was just weird.
I agree. Yeah, for him to get as much love from the crowd as he did, it was kind of odd. You know, one thing that I noted that I didn't quite agree with as far as something that you've said in the past, and that was from Fans Talk Fantasy Booking, the first episode, and you were listing EY as one of the top heels, and at the time that you said that, I didn't completely agree. I mean, yes, he was a good heel, but I think just how he has acted in this whole tournament, especially this week, it's almost like he's got like this rhythm going, this pattern that he's always following, and that pattern's good. Yeah. So at first I disagreed with you, but I really do feel like if you look at WWE now, you look at Lucha Underground now, you look at TNA right now, EY is it. He is like the only true major heel that is in any company. So, yeah. So with James Storm getting pops and whatnot, because of that, I think that's the only reason why I think he is. But the other note that I had in this match was that, and you go back to the last James Storm match, the first James Storm match, anytime that they have a backstage segment between Josh and Pope about the TNA Originals division in this, they throw so much shade towards James Storm, and I'm wondering if it has to do with him leaving, if it has to do with him basically jumping to NXT, because you'd have to imagine that they do this commentary the week before. So yeah, but it just seems like they're like both Josh and Pope are so heavy-handed and anti James Storm. It just seems really, really odd. So that's what was odd for me.
Yeah, if they kept the same practices that they were using with Taz and Josh, then I would imagine that they're recording commentary either the week of or the week before, much longer after the actual matches were taped.
Right.
I'm with you. I definitely see that. It does feel like they're kind of heaping on Storm after he left. I wonder if part of that is maybe trying to build up the fact that, after this week, we're not going to see him again. And, that is kind of disappointing. He never really went out with a bang. So I think it's a little bit of both. But yeah, I don't want to say it's in poor taste to kind of say, well, he was the most disappointing guy coming out of this whole thing. But yeah, it is kind of disappointing to watch how all that went down. With Sheer and O'Shea, I know you said you didn't take any notes, but me personally, I was really impressed with the way both those guys handled their characters. O'Shea in particular, since, we don't see a whole lot of him. I really enjoyed just that no nonsense, no putting on airs, just kind of, to borrow a phrase from NXT, no flips, just fists attitude that O'Shea brings to the table. Just all the trash talk, all the brawling. I enjoy that about him. And I think Sheer is holding his own just as well.
I like Aiden O'Shea. I think it's a good style for him. I don't know if it's a good character for him, but just the fact that he's doing pretty well with it is just a good sign. You know, we've always liked this guy. You know, even when he was going through gut check. So to see him be as charismatic and well-rounded in the ring, I think is only, you know, giving us hope that there's good things to come if TNA retains him. But Shira, I have a hard time liking anything that he does. It just like there's no real true gimmick. The whole dancing thing I could do without. Yeah, just overall, Shira rubs me the wrong way.
I'm sure that at least part of the reason he's being pushed as hard as he is because of the upcoming India tour. The big deals they've made with Sony 6 over there, their media partner, and all that, trying to get set up for the second Indian wrestler to come out of there. They're doing a talent search right now. I'm not quite as down on him as you are. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he brings something to the table. And I think he is learning as he goes.
Yeah.
You're right. There's not a whole lot of gimmick there. After he resolved things with Storm, and there hasn't really been anything. Of course, there hasn't really been a whole lot of opportunity for story going into the World Title Series, given the circumstances. But maybe that'll be addressed once we run through the current set of tapings and we move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, and, you know, as far as being pushed, yeah, I mean, he swept. Matt Hardy swept. I could be wrong, but didn't Eli Drake sweep?
No, he only got 1 point in his match with Micah. They both went to double count out.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, as far as guys that are being pushed to the moon, yeah, definitely Shira is in that camp. I mean, don't get me wrong. He definitely has the look. He definitely has ring ability to carry him. But, yeah, without, like, a story that you can get behind or I don't know, just something about, like, I wanted to see something different. They, you know, the last guy from India that we saw on TV was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Kali, and they started doing something similar with Kali, and it just didn't fit. You know, the dude was so huge and monstrous. It didn't really make sense for them to go from that monster to, you know, a dancing, jokey character. And I feel like TNA is following that same pattern with Shira, and, you know, obviously not copying, and obviously not, you know, at the same level, but still, it's a I don't know. I think they could totally handle Shira better.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, we'll see better down the line. We mentioned Eli Drake a bit ago, and I don't think there's a whole lot to say about his match with Crimson. Just that Drake continues to impress me. It does seem like we keep seeing something a little bit different from him every week. He finished Crimson with an armbar this week, and you know, it's a shame that Crimson hasn't really gotten a chance to shine in this whole thing. But on the whole, if we get somebody as intriguing as almost captivating, I suppose, as Eli Drake, then I guess I don't really have cause to complain.
Yeah, you know what? And another thing about this match was it's night and day for Crimson. Crimson, like when he was in that winning streak a few years back, he just looked so weak and unable to really realistically demonstrate, you know, being worthy enough to have that winning streak. But now, I wouldn't say so much the last time I saw him, but this match in particular, despite the loss, despite the submission loss, he looked really good.
Hmm. Absolutely.
But as far as Eli Drake goes, yeah, I think that was the right choice. I like Drake. I like what he brings. With him going over Jesse, with him going over uh, Crimson this week, and just how he works in the ring. It's almost like that old school flavor where he's just attacking. He's attacking that piece that is obviously hurt and continuing to push on it and continue to push on it. So, that's great psychology and logic, and not enough guys use that in the ring.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you. I love that attention to detail that he brings to the table. Closing out remarks. Bobby Roode and Abyss. I thought they had, again, match of the night. Roode, I think, set up his game a little bit on the cerebral level. I think they kept talking about how he comes out calm, he comes out collected, he's calculating, and he doesn't get flustered. And even when he does get hot before a match, usually he's able to compose himself and put on his game face, and you can't break it. I think he kind of embodied that when, towards the end of the match, when he got Abyss to charge into that chair that he set up in his corner, and then Roode put on that choke slam. It kind of seemed to me that Roode didn't intend to actually hit it, but he intended to go to Abyss, pissing him off by using his own move, and that set him up for the crossface. I don't know if that's just me looking at it and putting my own interpretation of events onto it, but just the fact that I can look at it and kind of see that says a lot of good things about Bobby Roode, and there are a ton of good things you could say about that man.
Yeah, Roode looked really good. Abyss, I don't, just going back to this logic, this ring psychology, I couldn't understand why Abyss was going to, the extreme level with bringing in the chair, bringing in Janice. He didn't need that. He was already in a position where he was pretty much dominating the match or had the advantage in the match. So to bring that stuff only to then have that fail and him go into the chair or him, losing because he got Janice stuck in the turnbuckle. It just didn't, to me, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense that you've got a guy who can obviously destroy whoever is in the ring with him, fall back to, your sleazy heel tactics, only to have that cause the loss for him.
Yeah, it really didn't make sense. It would be one thing, I think, if he was visibly getting frustrated by not being able to get that pin, by not making any real headway and damaging Roode enough to get that win, that he went and got the chair or he went and got Janice. But there didn't seem to be any real change in his behavior or his demeanor as he went to go get those things. If you're that in control of your faculties, then why don't you realize that using one of these things successfully will get you disqualified and you can't advance? That's one thing I don't like about Abyss, and that kind of hurts to say because he seemed to show some promise at the beginning of the tournament when he beat EY, without really resorting to the hardcore tactics.
Yeah, and just think of the scenario, like right before he brought in the chair, he basically like Irish whipped Roode into the stairs, so Roode was already hurt. And then he brings in the chair before continuing to cause that damage. When he brought Janice in, Roode was on the mat. He could have easily gone for a pin there. He could easily have continued the dominance that he was showing at that point. And it just doesn't make sense. So from a character standpoint, from a wrestler standpoint, just trying to understand like what would be going through his mind when he went for that stuff. Like nothing I can come up with makes sense or fits. So I just don't get it.
Yeah. very clearly the better man won, the better wrestler won, and I suppose that's as it should be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm happy that Rude advanced. It's the obvious choice. I mean, you had mentioned you didn't want to see title holders necessarily move into the final 16, but I'm totally fine with the King of the Mountain champion to be in this spot.
Yeah, for sure. If you have to have a champion go in there, which I guess now we have two. Gail Kim is still the Knockouts champ, right?
That's what makes this so hard
Yeah.
because, like,
It's been so long.
It's rare that we spend a lot of time listening to commentary. I mean, it comes in and out for me. So if commentary doesn't mention it and they don't walk to the ring with the title because they may or may not have had the title at the time of these tapings, like it's really hard to keep track of this. So
Yeah, it kind of is.
yeah.
But yeah, I suppose it doesn't hurt to have champions go on. I assume they're going to lose in subsequent rounds, but I guess we'll see. Okay, so that's last night's Impact. So we've had some advancements go on to the round of 16. Thus far, we've had Matt Hardy advance, Gail Kim advance, EC3 advance. This week, Awesome Kong, Eric Young, Mahabali Shera, Eli Drake, and Bobby Roode all advanced. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 8 folks right there. So half the field.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's going to be kind of interesting to see who rounds that out. Looking at the leaderboards right now, EC3 is obviously qualified. Austin Aries and Lashley are still in contention. They will be fighting next week. Eli Drake is advanced from Group Future 4. Micah and Jesse Goddard have their match next week as well. The group knockouts is decided. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong are advancing, and so are Group TNA Originals, Bobby Roode and Eric Young. Group Tag Team Specialists, Matt Hardy was the first to advance. We are going to see who else advances either next week or the week after between Robbie E. and Davey Richards. Group UK, they've still got 2 more matches to go. We're going to be seeing Drew Galloway versus Rockstar Spud and Bram versus Grado. Again, all between next week and the week after. From Group Wildcard, Mahabali Shera is advanced. It seems pretty likely Aiden O'Shea will advance, barring shenanigans in the match between Kenny King and Crazy Steve. And finally, Group X Division, they're all tied with 6 points, except for Andrews, who has none. And we're going to be seeing a playoff match between those 3 next week.
Yeah, so it starts off as a triple threat, then goes to like when the first person scores a pin, then he's advanced, and then we get 2 more. Then we get a singles match, and whoever wins that advances as well. What's that match count? As far as like what has to happen between now and the rest of the final 16 advancing.
Let's see. We've got 7 matches on the card right now, left in group play, and that's right. If Group Wild Card doesn't do anything weird with the numbers there, like if Crazy Steve happens to beat Kenny King.
So here's my prediction then. Next week is going to give us the full final 16. I know that's 7 matches. This week we had 6 matches, and that included really, really long segments with EC3 and Matt Hardy. So you eliminate that, and there is time for another match, but also keep in mind that they still have refused to show a Micah match. I can't imagine they would change that for this upcoming week. So Micah versus Jesse Goddard will be just 2 highlights, maybe. One might not even be a highlight like last week. And yeah, so I think we can easily find that out. And the reason I'm saying that is because there was talk this week about the idea of us viewers being able to put a bracket together for the final 16, and the whoever is perfect, I guess, would be up for the running to win a chance to go to an Impact Live taping.
That is true. And also, you got to have things set up for the tapings in India,
Yeah.
starting in December, early December, if I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah, that could very well happen.
You know, that is interesting as well. I would have to imagine that they got a few matches in during the current round of tapings that we're watching right now before they go to India, because India, I don't imagine we'll get a live show, so it would be at least a week or two behind. And if that's not until mid-December,
Yeah, probably. Because the semifinals, that's going to be the group of 8, if you will. So, yeah, we're going to have to see at least some of the round of 16 before the India tapings.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, I suppose that does it for this week's Impact. We've already given a preview of next week's Impact, the X Division match, Mike and Jesse, Lashley and Aries. More of those matches as well to see who rounds out the group of 16. Any final thoughts, Garvin?
Well, I'm going to let you start because I know there was one piece of major news that came out. So go ahead and talk about that, and I've got a note to add to it.
Yes, indeed. So last night, Dixie Carter linked us to a countdown clock on Impact's website. And today it was revealed that they do indeed have a new TV deal for next year. They have come to terms with Pop TV. If you're not familiar with that network, it is what the TV Guide channel used to be. They have since put together, I believe, their own programming. They've got a lot of reruns and such. They've actually done pro wrestling before. You may not be familiar with the outfit. It's Paragon Pro Wrestling. It is a lot of ex-WWE, TNA, ECW guys. Gangrel's in there. Joey Ryan as well. A few other notable names. Not Jesse Goddard's, the other Jesse. I'm blanking on his last name. The guy that had his neck broken in the match with DJZ.
Oh, Jesse Sorensen.
Yes, Sorensen.
Yeah.
He was in there as well. I'm pretty sure he still is. But yeah, all signs point to this being a step up from Destination America. For one thing, Pop TV does have some name recognition, even if that's partly associated with their old brand. They're also found in about 20 million more homes across the U.S. So,
yeah, I think I read a number. It was like 75 million.
Yeah, I've been seeing between 75 and 80 million. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a huge plus for Impact or TNA. Plus, I don't believe it's as restricted as Destination America was. I know, well, obviously it's not. It's in 20 million more homes. But it's more accessible as far as if you want to get a channel to watch Impact. This Pop TV isn't going to be as hard to get as Destination America would have been.
No, it's on most basic cable packages. You know, with Destination America, that was a second tier that you had to buy just to get Destination America. But yeah, I think Pop TV, the way I read it, is that the services that it runs on, as well as most of the locations that it's on that first tier, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be starting Tuesday nights on January 5th of next year. So practically kicking off the new year. Yeah,
Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern is the date I read, or the time I read. Before we move on, I wanted to ask you, and maybe this is something we also ask everyone listening. You know, one thing that I've enjoyed over the last month or so, I mean, despite us not getting like live tapings, despite us not getting new content, I mean, this is all content that they taped in June, July, August, thereabouts. So, despite that, like, I'm actually really enjoying the fact that we're getting 6 matches, an episode, that everything seems like really tied together, and obviously it's produced that way. It's not produced like TNA did prior to that, where they're doing backstage segments at the event as they're taping. But I mean, overall, it seems like this format that they've gone to has actually increased my interest in it. So, do you think that TNA should keep this format as they move to Pop TV, or would you rather them see, or would you rather them go back to what they were doing before?
I hope they don't just go back to what they were doing before, because what they were doing before was a pointless angle with GFW. So,
well,
that sort of storyline and storytelling, no, I hope TNA at least partially shifts away from that. I don't think there's anything wrong with an invasion angle by itself, but TNA has played those so heavily over the last couple of years. It's been nice to have this sort of break to just focus on wrestling, to just focus on a pursuit for the world title, to be as inclusive as possible and give everyone a shot, including the knockouts, including tag team wrestlers, including the X Division.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want this to continue indefinitely. Just this sort of all wrestling, little to no story. Because there has been an overarching angle where Matt Hardy and EC3 have been feuding with the Injunction, with these back and forth over interviews. But I want there to be more stories. I want there to be something going on in the X Division, in the Knockouts Division, in the Tag Team Division. I want more tag teams, period. But, I hope they can find a nice balance between the two.
No, you're right. We definitely do need more stories. We need more logic when it comes to like matches, like any match that Abyss is in, just to continue a story that we can all follow and understand. But just think of like how the differences were, 3 or 4 months back, where you had Taz and Josh Matthews in the studio, and it was like a little box basically where they were sitting, not facing the camera, talking about the match, and we would get those cuts during the match to show them backstage. But since like Pope joined, and they've been doing what they're doing as far as the format goes, you never see the commentating team during the match. Is always like after the match, and to me, I actually enjoy that format a lot better. I know there was a lot of criticism for them, doing commentary in the studio rather than at ringside or in the arena itself, but the way that they've increased their production value on that side of things, like I think this fits a lot better and allows them to get into the match and not necessarily detract away from the match. You're not seeing the commentating team for the entire match because the match is what's important. So yeah, to me, there's a lot of benefits and a lot of positives to take away from what they've been doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I have enjoyed the shift away from having commentary at ringside to having commentary backstage, and I think that offers TNA a lot more flexibility as far as the taping schedule, or in order to have maybe commentary reference something that they didn't necessarily notice in the moment. There's a little bit more of a safety net, I suppose you could say, that it's probably pretty nice for TNA to have around. You do lose out on some of those moments where, say, like at Bound for Glory, where Pope just stood up on the desk and announced his involvement in the Gauntlet match, or like in WWE, where you have Kevin Owens constantly yelling at Michael Cole to pay attention to watch this. But TNA's never really been huge on that. And I don't really think I'd like for a team like Josh Matthews and Pope to continually be at risk of being involved in something like that. I don't think they have the chops to kind of riff on that or back that up on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you lose is that spontaneous reaction as far as like if someone looks like they got injured or there is a lot of blood or whatever. When you're next to it happening, your reaction is a lot different than if you're in the studio a week later.
For sure.
Yeah, because when you're next to the ring as it's happening, there's a lot of questions that probably run through your head. But when you're seeing it in the studio and it's been at least a week, you already know that whoever was involved in that particular match is fine. So you do lose that little spontaneous, like that spontaneous, almost uncomfortability with what you're seeing from an announcer standpoint.
Yeah, very true.
Okay.
Well, that looks like it. That brings us to a close on this week's Impact discussion. Now, for those of you guys out there listening to us, this podcast family couldn't be happening without the support of our Patreon subscribers, our squared circle of trust. If you'd like to get on that action, help us keep things running, and get a bunch of fun perks in the process, you can head over to fanstalktna.com, click on that big green button at the top, and find out how you can help with just $1 a month. This is Nick for Garvin, and I will be back next week, and I hope you will be as well. Take care, y'all.